I pick exercise selection for soccer. And I'm like,
Hmm.
they're athletes. We train, we squat. Like,
Yeah.
you look at the soccer population, they're very undertrained in the performance space. Their training age is extremely low. So that gets me excited when I get a freshman in because I think then their ceiling for growth is extremely high.
Welcome to the Athletic Edge podcast. I'm your host, Liam Evans, strength and conditioning coach and owner of Evans Performance. This is a podcast tailored for athletes, coaches, and parents interested in every facet of athletic development. Join me and guests from around the world as we dive into game-changing tools and expert insights covering strength training, performance enhancement, and long-term athletic development strategies. Uncover the keys to elevate your athletic potential, drawing from trusted resources to safely and effectively navigate your training and build your athletic edge. All right, welcome back to the podcast. So today we are very lucky to be joined by Malorie Henderlong, who is the women's soccer strength and conditioning coach at Auburn University. Mallory, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
It's I don't even know where or how I started following you, but just seeing your stuff over like the last few months, it just like all resonated so much. And it was a mixture of like obviously the strength and conditioning stuff, but then the like life as a strength coach stuff as well, which I appreciate how authentic you've been posting some of that stuff. So I'm excited to have you on and get talking.
Thanks. Yeah, I think just my social media, just when I first started sharing things, it was just an outlet of like I
Yeah,
think I enjoy training, I enjoy my job. I don't think I necessarily like my captions aren't profound and like people
yeah,
aren't gonna read my caption and learn something about periodization. But I mean I think even in my bio I have like fearlessly authentic and that's been in my bio
yeah.
for years now and like that's just who I am. So I'm going to share the good, the bad and the ugly.
Of course. So for anybody who might not follow you or doesn't know exactly who you are, kind of do you want to give a quick background on yourself and essentially what inspired you to become a strength coach and do what you're doing today?
Yeah, I'll give a quick background just of my journey through the field and I won't
Mhm.
touch on it much cuz people can go and look it up,
Yeah.
but I grew up playing soccer. I in a soccer family, played in college, went on, do an internship in GA position at TCU. Took a part-time gig at UNC because of the rich soccer history. First full-time job, Baylor, had women's soccer there and a few other sports that I helped with. Did an internship at Austin FC last summer, just
Mhm.
wanting to learn more in the soccer space. Took a job at NC State, was there for 6 months with men's and women's soccer, and then landed here at Auburn, where I have only women's soccer, and that's my sole
Mhm.
responsibility. And from the jump, that's been end goal for me. But kind of when I look back of what inspired me to be a strength coach, because this is not initially what I went to college for. Played at a small NAIA school, didn't have a college strength coach. So my first exposure to college strength and conditioning was my first internship at TCU, and
Mhm.
I was like, "What is this world?" But I grew up in a performance training gym at home, a private sector. Went there, like I remember going there in like elementary school, like fifth grade. Then I went to sixth grade, like sporadically. Like me and my brother, I'm pretty sure went. Like he was much younger, just in the summer or whatever. My strength coach there, his name's Kevin. He was who I trained with there at the time. And seventh grade, I tore my PCL, broke my tibia, and found myself back there to do rehab.
Wow.
And really, my rehab was training. Like, it's not something you have surgery on in seventh grade. So
Yeah.
I spent 6, 7 months rehabbing, but really just doing performance training, and it stuck. I trained there consistently through high school. When I'd come back home for summer break, winter break, Kevin's who I saw, trained with. We had our core group of kids that would come back for classes in the summer.
Mhm.
When and then now as a coach, like that's where I go when I go home, and Kevin's still there all these years later. The facility itself recently closed its doors, but like for me, it was never about the facility; it was about the person.
Mhm.
And I think, right, I probably need to say this to Kevin face to face, but it'll be like 6 more months probably before I see him at Christmas time again. Um, but like he's had a profound impact on my life, not only as an athlete, as a person. He saw me as an awkward middle schooler, a bratty high schooler who thought she knew everything. The college athlete who was at the peak of their career and then turned depressed college athlete who was at their lowest point. And so I think when I look back, it's just like this person had this tremendous impact on my athletic career, but
Mhm.
just who I am as a person. And I think that really is what drives me every single day of like, uh, I'm I'm here to like make an impact on young people's lives. So that's ultimately that led me to, all right, I want to serve and mentor young people. And this is just the platform I'm doing that through right now.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I, being from a small country of Bermuda, like I didn't really have any knowledge or experience with strength conditioning at all till I got to university, and it was like, whoa, what's going on here? But then I didn't also think about doing anything in strength conditioning until for like your because soccer was a fall sport. We had like the senior spring, and I had to do my internship, and I didn't have a car or nothing, so I was like, I had developed a pretty good relationship with our strength coach. I was like, can I just come in and do it here? It'll be the easiest. And then like 5 months later, I was like, oh, I actually really like this. but
Yeah.
and it's also having that, like obviously going through, and we don't have to get into our college trauma because I also had a few hard years as well, but just having somebody like your strength coach, for instance, I had somebody back home as well, a mentor, is like somebody to lean on as well.
Mhm.
I feel like that also is such a big fueling factor for why we do what we do and what impact strength and conditioning coaches can have outside of just in the weight room, which yeah, I've always been curious about. But given, so did you work at TCU? Were you also with soccer interning, or were you with baseball or
My internship there was in the summer, so I worked any team that was on campus.
okay,
So soccer was
yeah,
on campus, the basketballs, some other athletes sporadically through teams,
mhm,
baseball, freshmen were there, so like Coach Dagan's foundation
yeah,
program got exposed to that, but mainly football. So that at the time TCU was under one director, one roof. Went back there for my GA, I had soccer cross country
mhm,
where the sports I oversaw assisted football.
okay, got you, yeah. So in the soccer world, depending on where you are, but still pretty much generally speaking, there's still quite a bit of misconception around what strength and conditioning is for soccer players and what that looks like and what it doesn't look like and all these things around. How do you kind of navigate that with any of your athletes that are maybe their first time is like it was for me, like their first time being exposed to strength and conditioning is in a collegiate facility with you, or they're coming from, I know we had a lot of overseas players in Europe or wherever, and so it was also their first time. So how do you kind of navigate that realm? And we can start as broadly as you'd like, and then we can get into
Yeah.
more of the X's and O's.
Yeah, I think I have a lot of different answers to this. When it comes to the kids in particular, um, it's varied for me based on different groups. I
Mhm.
think, right, the female populations that I've worked with, it's all just relationships. Like
Yeah.
the girls, and not that the males are different, but the male population have worked with, I'll touch on in a bit. It was a completely different experience. But they just want to know I care
Yeah.
about them as people and educate. Like I'm big on I share the why behind everything. I over explain, I over educate. I try to correlate it back to the sport. And I think that goes hand in hand with like our coaching staff as well. We have to meet the coaching staff and the athletes with where they're at. I don't need to be overly scientific and act like I'm some like really knowledgeable person. And
Mhm.
I just need to meet them and like speak in soccer terms. And I think that's what makes me really good at my job. I think it helps that I played the sport as well. That I've been there. I know what it feels like to like be on the field for 90 grueling minutes sometimes and do the really hard conditioning and like strength training sessions. But I think it's just really comes down to meeting them where they're at and
Mhm.
correlating it back to the sport. I think I've talked about this on a different podcast before, even like when it comes to coaching staffs, their hesitations, if they've had a past experience that was really poor with a strength coach or in a facility in a gym, like it doesn't shock me that they're hesitant to put their athletes in that situation, right? Like coaches, this is their livelihood.
Mhm.
And how they care for their family, and it relies on 18 and 22-year-olds to be healthy and performing and available. And that's the most important piece, right? So they're thinking about, how are my players going to be available to play and not feel heavy legged and tired and sore.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it just comes down to education. And there's two sides to that, right? We have to educate the coaching staff on our craft and what we've poured years in time into learning about, but we have to educate ourselves on the sport and
Yeah.
be able to speak the language of the sport, to the coaches, to meet them where they are. Um, and then I think on the flip side, you kind of talked about like the international piece. When I was at NC State, our men's program was predominantly international, like 50% international. Also, I got there and started 3 days before preseason with the men's program. And so I'm out there at the first practice. I'm like, hey
Yeah.
guys, I'm Mallory. You know, I'm the one that's going to make you lift. And I know you
Yeah.
hate the weight room, and half of you have had a physio and you don't know what a strength coach is. Um, so, and I've talked about this before on
Yeah.
another pod, that like people would probably have walked in those weight room sessions and been like, what is this house party that's going on?
Mhm.
But I just met those guys where they were at. Like we had a lot of internationals, a lot of grad transfers. So they were really only going to be there 6 months. And my sole priority at that time was, how do I keep them healthy? How do I keep them available? How do I keep them playing so we can have the longest season possible? And I think I still talk to a lot of them now, and
Mhm.
like things have clicked. And it all comes back to just caring about people. Probably
Yeah.
not the answer people want, but in my space, like I've had a lot of success with just like caring and educating.
Yeah, 100%. I actually just wrote a long caption today. It was along the same lines, like for whatever athlete or population you're working with, like forget what the actual exercises are. There's a million different ways we can do something, but having that buy-in, having that care, having that understanding with the athlete is going to go so much further.
Yeah,
Um,
and
s-
kind of to expand on that, and someone had just asked me, sent me a message on Instagram asking me like, how do I pick exercise selection for soccer? And I'm like,
mhm,
they're athletes. We train, we squat. Like,
yeah,
you look at the soccer population, they're very undertrained in the performance space. Their training age is extremely low. So that gets me excited when I get a freshman in, because I think then their ceiling for growth is extremely high. We could do, my program is extremely basic. We squat, we hinge, we push, we pull, we stabilize,
mhm,
rotate through the core, the pillar, the trunk, whatever you want to call it, right? And then we touch on some other things that I think are important: hip flexors, quad, or hip flexors, adductors, the neck.
yeah,
Um, but we're not doing anything groundbreaking, and
yeah.
any other sport in the country is probably also doing it.
Yeah. It's also coming around the time. I know before we recorded, we were just quickly talking about like preseason and what we're preparing for and all that sort of stuff. So this is the time I find myself having conversations, whether it's with like sport coaches that I just know or athletes getting ready to go back to university. Obviously, they have less control over this, but preseason testing slash conditioning and going, 100%. I remember it was terrible, but my coach, our preseason started and we were into 3 days with a game every night. The fitness test was the first morning of, and by the end of the week, there was like 10 injured players and it was just all downhill from there. But as far as preseason testing goes, do you have a say in like what Auburn does? And if so, what kind of models are you thinking about for these?
Yeah, I'm really thankful that, I mean, I'm 6 months, just so everyone listening knows, I'm 6 months into my job at Auburn as
Mhm.
of like 2 days ago. I got the email. Well, happy 6 months. Um, our coaching staff is phenomenal. We're all a little crazy. Sometimes we sit in meetings and I'm like, what is going on? I just say passion. It's
Yeah.
passion. But we have a few loose screws here and there, and myself included.
Yeah.
But I think that they trust me to do my job and do my job at the highest level, and I trust them to do their job. And I can sit here confidently saying I don't know if I've ever believed so much in a program during my career, that I think when I got here on campus and these coaches called me and asked me to come work at Auburn, I was like, yeah, like I feel the fire and the passion. And like, I truly believe Auburn soccer, like in the next 5 years, we're going to be winning some championships, not just conference championships, but I truly think like we can win a national championship, the direction we're going. So it's easy for me to buy in. And I think the coaches buy into me. And we have a very clear framework and working relationship. So I have a lot of say in things. I recognize not everyone gets that, but also that takes work, and it's still a growing relationship. Like there are still things that maybe I don't have an ultimate say in, but I think there's a strong enough relationship that I can voice my opinion on things a lot of the time. So when it comes to fitness tests, I'm not married to a fitness test. I have run different various fitness tests at each school I've been to. Typically, it's one of the first things I ask coaches, like, fitness test, what test do you prefer? We come to a mutual agreement on the fitness test and we go from there. I have never not agreed with it because the standard ones are the Nike Spark, the beep test, the yo-yo. And now I'm at Auburn and we're running a fitness test called the Bronco. What it really is a 1,200-meter shuttle test. I had never run this test before. I'm growing to actually like this test more than the yo-yo. But right, I heard my coach out on it. This is what he's done in the past. He's had success. He likes it. And ultimately for me, the test is more than just, oh, we're doing something hard. Like, what can we do with this test? I'm already running the test. What information can I gather that can better prepare our athletes? So I personally, we can use a conversion and calculate and estimate maximal aerobic speed. And then through that, I periodize all of our conditioning. Now, is this what everyone should do? Probably not. And there's probably gonna be some people that listen to this and think I'm stupid, and that's okay. We ran our fitness test on the first day the girls got here. But let me preface by saying my reason for that is then I have a whole month to individualize their conditioning. Not everyone passed the test. And so now I have a whole month and to help these athletes prepare. That's not my main focus of our conditioning, but I can individually plan things for them rather than being like, okay, squad, we're going to do tempo runs. We're going to do cross field tempo runs. So 75 yards. And I want everyone to get there in 13 seconds. Well, Sally and Susie are two completely different athletes at two completely different training ages, two completely different training histories, right? Different conditioning and fitness levels. I'm not tailoring to either of them. One of them I may be overtraining, one of them I may be undertraining. And then there's maybe a group in the middle that it's their sweet spot. So do I think that maximal aerobic speed and using an estimate of that is the end all be all? No, but it's helped me a lot. And I think I've gotten a lot of buy-in with this group in particular. I've used it in the past other places, but this group in particular has bought in. They're like, all right, I'm going to put my head down and work because I know that this is built for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll go back to doing the fitness test on the first day. I don't think that's the answer for everyone at all. And my athletic trainer, I sat down and contemplated that a lot. But I told this group we were doing that 3 months before we did it. 3 months ahead of time, they knew exactly what day they were running the fitness test. And so, I mean, a lot of people want to talk about, oh, your kids are not going to train over the summer. These kids train over the summer.
Yeah.
Like if you get the right kids in the program, they're going to train over the summer. And now I'm getting long-winded and yapping, but I want to also preface with, if you're a freshman coming to Auburn soccer program, you receive a training program from me 16 weeks before you arrive on this campus. So it's 4 months in advance. You're still playing club and high school soccer, and this training program acknowledges that. I meet these kids where they're at. It is the most basic of basic program. We're learning how to squat, hinge, push, pull. It's basically my foundation program. They lift twice a week, 30 to 40 minutes. And then there's 2 speed sessions, or one speed, one acceleration, but really early on, it's mostly acceleration and some buildups with a little bit of change direction work, just the basics. 9 weeks before they arrive on campus, that's when conditioning is added because most of them are done with high school and club stuff. So I'm like, okay, now we can add the conditioning. I have to acknowledge they're running around like crazy, still doing this whole youth soccer thing. I reach out to all those kids every single week. They probably get tired of, who is this Mallory person? That's my coach. She's annoying me. Why is she asking me to send her videos of me squatting and sprinting? But that has been the communication. So I felt confident going into that first day of our fitness test. Will I always feel that way? I don't know. Will I always do that? I
Mhm.
don't know. But this year I felt really good about it and we had a ton of success, and I'm so excited about this group. So.
Honestly, so much to unpack. One thing I did want to go all the way back to. So you had
Yeah, I
mentioned
got
obviously,
long-winded.
no, it's perfect. So you had mentioned obviously, say you're doing, tempo runs or anything like that. And yeah, for if you put a one singular time on, run end line to end line or whatever it is, you're gonna have some kids that like breeze through that 13 seconds, some kids that really struggle, and then like you said, that average where maybe that is the right, like the perfect time for them. So
Mhm.
you are individualizing your fitness. Is it as simple as like kid A runs it in 15 seconds, kid B runs it in 13, and maybe kid C is trying to do it in 11, or how, or distance or volume? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so we calculate maximal aerobic speed, right? And that's in like meters per second. I do
Yep.
everything in yards, so I do the conversion. So say on Monday we had what I call long intervals. And this is nothing groundbreaking. I didn't come up with it. You can find it on the internet. If you literally Google maximal aerobic speed, it's on Simply Faster. There's an article that comes up. I
Mhm.
referenced this article however many years ago, still
Yep.
use stuff from it. Um, but 90 seconds on, 90 seconds off. So I'm like, okay, if this athlete's maximum aerobic speed is 3.9, okay, Chat GPT. If my maximum aerobic speed is, we're just gonna be honest. If my maximum aerobic speed is 3.9 and I need to run for 90 seconds, how many yards do I need to cover? And then I have it for all my athletes and I just bucket their maximal
Yeah.
aerobic speed. So 3.85 to 3.95, whatever. Okay, you
Yeah.
guys are all going to this cone. So everyone runs the same time, different distances.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes
And
sense.
then it's easy, do we need to shuffle up or down? Because in the fitness test, you'll always have a handful of kids that don't do well. And it's not because they're not fit enough, it's because mentally they're
Yeah.
weak. They're having an
Yep.
off day. And so I think I had two of those in this time, and they needed to go up two groups.
Hmm.
But you just, as a coach, you spend so much time with these kids,
Yeah.
those those situations.
And then, so what? Because anybody who has played understands that you can build, yes, your general, base of aerobic fitness and things like that. But even I could run every day or every week, and I'll get to preseason, and if I haven't actually played any bit of football or soccer, then you're gonna feel like you got hit by a ton of bricks because it's just so specific in a way that is hard to recreate. So how do you approach, in the sense of, are you doing like certain days where you're just going for a tempo run, and other days maybe you're trying to introduce a different style of quote unquote conditioning?
Yeah, I've answered your question, but I want to preface with this. So, kind of my thought process on conditioning is like a three-pronged approach,
Hmm.
right? There's energy system development. That's what we're talking about right now, right? Just your standard running, developing our three energy systems. There's movement and skill. And this is right, anything that you do on the ball. But I think as a performance coach, there's what I call basic actions that we can train, right? We're training horizontal, vertical acceleration, deceleration. We're training
Hmm.
landing mechanics. We can train things to help with interacting with the ball and the opponent. But you have to be proficient in movement and skill to, go shoulder to shoulder with a player,
Hmm.
dribble ball with speed, make a run through a channel,
Yeah.
all those things. And then there's conditioning of the brain, right? We have to train athletes to still work under fatigue when you're in the 90-second minute of a match because there's added time, right? Like, where's our mind going? How are we
Yeah.
still making decisions and completing passes and executing various tasks on the field? So there's a three-pronged approach. I think everyone understands this running piece and this conditioning piece. A lot of the time, coaches like even the sport coach forgets about these other two pieces. But how do we train our conditioning differently, right? For me right now, if I had a more underdeveloped group from a fitness perspective, we may do some like long, slow duration running just through like slow tempo runs. I'll never be like, well, on my watch while they're here on campus, oh, let's go jog a mile. Like
Yeah.
we aren't going to do this, but we'll do some slower tempos. Like, and we'll do a high volume of those and just build a base. This group is pretty fit. So a lot of our work I would call like more high intensity aerobic or anaerobic power work. So our
Hmm.
Mondays are our long intervals, 90 seconds on, 90 seconds off. Thursdays are our short intervals. So that's definitely more like anaerobic, 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off. And they're going at 120% of maximal aerobic speed. So it's like an overspeed
Yeah.
tempo for sure. And then Fridays are, we do an aerobic grid. So it's like, right, again, we have different groups, different grid sizes.
Hmm.
One length is 100% maximal aerobic speed. The other length, we started at 50%. The next week it was 60%. And then I think we're going to be at 60% again this week. And then we'll be at 70%
Hmm.
on the width next week of maximal aerobic speed. That's probably our easiest day of the week. And I would say is more of our like long, slow duration. Um, and we have a little bit higher of like volume covered on that
Yeah.
day. But that's kind of how we're like splitting up our days. And then we have captain's practice, and the girls have like I help guide them in, hey, it's a Monday, it's a reintro day. Let's not do anything overly combative in small spaces. Okay,
Yeah.
it's Tuesday. We can do more small spaces, more acceleration, deceleration efforts. All right, Thursday, let's open up the pitch size and play a little bit. And then Friday, we kind of gauge on like where we are at for
Yeah.
the week. But there's clear, and the kids get it. They know, they're educated on it. They understand like drill selection for
Hmm.
practice and like what the theme of the day is. So, I mean, that's just as important in our conditioning and preparation for preseason.
Yeah. 100%. And it just feels like that's always the thing that coaches or parents or whoever is asking about is
Yeah.
well, they need to be fitter, obviously. That's going to make them better, or what are they doing for their fitness or anything like that. Which I like to then kind of switch gears a little into, I know you obviously do a lot of like speed work, XL, decel work with your athletes. So do you want to touch on, I mean, first just why that is so important? Because I think obviously it's something that can be overlooked by some people. So yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I always challenge people in this. And when recruits come on campus here, I give a presentation, and my whole MO is like speed and acceleration. Like, I want to
Yeah.
develop quick, agile, fast, explosive athletes. And I always say, I'm like, hey, listen, our coaching staff didn't go out and watch you play and be like, oh, that person is slow, but they can run forever.
Forever.
No, we don't want you. We want people that are
Yeah.
fast, explosive, aggressive, also can withstand 90 minutes of a match. But
Yeah.
if you look at the game of soccer, the moments that really matter in a match, the moments where like there's high press, goals are being scored, there's breakaways, people are accelerating, decelerating, sprinting. And
Hmm.
it's not just the person on the ball. And I think sometimes that gets lost in translation as well, right? Yes, the player on the ball is dribbling at speed, but all the defenders are dropping and they're sprinting and they're hitting max velocity.
Hmm.
So it's all, I mean, I won't include the goalkeepers, but 20
Yeah.
players on the field, you know. And I think that's lost a lot of times. We just think of soccer as, oh, it's 90 minutes, we're covering a lot of ground, there's a lot of slow jogging going on, yes, but you have to be able to accelerate and go from a standstill to beating a defender in the first three steps. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I sell why acceleration and speed development are important. What that looks like in our program varies based on the time of year. Right now it's really easy because it's just me and the kids,
Yeah.
and we'll do our acceleration day on Tuesdays, our max V day on Thursdays. Really, our max V day, I'll start there, is when we're like getting back into things, is just simply build ups.
Hmm.
We're not, you know, I think and this may just be the people I'm talking with in my circle or my network and just my own experience. I never had really had like soft tissue issues
Mm.
with female soccer players until like kind of recently. And I think in the spring, right, I'm the first to own up to my mistakes and lessons learned. This group was not prepared for the intensity of training that I exposed them to.
Mm.
We just had a few moments, nothing serious, but I was just like, okay, like we need to take a step back. And where I used to do early, like we would do build ups maybe 2, 3 weeks, and then we get into like build up and flies. I'm being a little bit more reserved on that
Mm.
right now. And I've talked to some other college soccer strength coaches, and they've been seeing similar things. I think it just all goes back to like these kids don't have a really low training age. We're
Yeah.
exposing them to some
Low
pretty like
film.
high
Yeah.
stimulus, and we need to be a little bit more reserved and
Yeah.
cautious in our training. So that's our
Yeah.
Thursday. So right now we're just doing build ups. We'll do a little bit of change direction work on that day as well.
Yeah.
Tuesdays are acceleration day. Right, we just start 10-yard accelerations, shift into adding some 15-yard accelerations. Maybe eventually we'll get into some 20, but we'll probably live in this 10 to 15 range.
Yeah.
We have change of direction work on that day. I think the kids are since I've gone here over the last 6 months have really bought into it. They
Mm.
see the value of it. Um, and they enjoy it for the most part. I think some days they're like, okay, like let's go play soccer. But
Yeah.
yeah, and I think I've had a lot of conversations with people like just through social media because I've tried to share some things, and I'm really trying to be more active as of like
Yeah.
a week and a half ago. But I've had really great conversations with like high school coaches that reached out, parents. So just hoping to move the needle forward in that space and kind of bring some
Yeah.
light to the importance of that outside of just conditioning.
Yeah. 100%. I know you. I can't remember if it was maybe it was this week or recently. You were talking about your warm ups and even just like I guess microdosing some speed in there. And I don't know if that was I can't remember if you said if that's an in season thing or if that's a current or off season. But is that kind of the way that you get it in sometimes?
Yeah, that's pretty much our norm. Right now,
Okay.
that's happening as an extension of our warm up before they
Yeah.
go into captain's practice.
Okay.
So, I mean, from start of the warm up to end of acceleration change direction work, it's right now 45 minutes on the dot.
Yeah.
It's not going to be that when we get in season. So it's
Yeah.
much more extensive right now. There's a much more larger volume of work being done. But once we get into season, we're playing matches, it will be microdosed into our pre-practice warm up.
Yeah.
um I've put it on social media before, like we sprint every day, like, and I don't see a problem with doing that in the warm up, or
Hmm.
like by sprint sometimes it just is an acceleration 10 to 15 yards because
Yeah.
the kids are going to do that in practice. So 1 or 2 exposures to that in the warm up, great.
Yeah.
um and then I think when it comes to true like max V work in season, um a lot of that is managed through like GPS as well, and like player load management. If an athlete is getting a lot of minutes, say like a winger, and they're covering substantial amount of like high speed distance, so over 90%, or sprint distance, over
Hmm.
90% of their personal max velocity, they're covering a ton of yardage. Like I'm not worried about exposing them to that necessarily in training.
Hmm.
Now, if an athlete is more developmental and they're not playing matches and they're not getting exposure to that in practice, okay, we're going to have conversation and we're going to implement some things, whether it be before practice. A lot of times in season, it's after practice. Like that's just where my mind is shifted to
Hmm.
is, I almost want like this safeguard of, okay, the kid's a little fatigued after practice. I get it. So maybe we're not actually hitting max velocity. Most of the time that I can get them to hit 90% or greater. Where
Hmm.
before practice, do I really want the kids, yes, fast and fresh, and that used to be my motto,
Hmm.
but sometimes that's actually scary for me because I've seen kids hit velocities they've never hit before. And the
Yeah.
last thing I need is popping a hamstring or a quad, doing a fly, going into
Yeah.
practice
Yeah.
mid-season.
Yeah. 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 I guess yeah, those would be the where you would want to make sure that they're ready for that intensity, I guess,
Yep.
going into
So,
things.
a little fatigue you know, another strength coach I talked to recently was like saying this, like, you never want them feeling too good. Like, you want them
Yeah.
feeling good, but never like too good.
Yeah. How in season are they lifting before practice or after practice?
So we will, I could get into kind of like
Yeah.
our
If you want
model
to do
of,
like how you
yeah,
guys do it,
model of
because
just lifting in season
yeah.
for us. We will lift before practice. I've
Okay.
never lifted before practice with a group until I got to Auburn. So I think, right, understanding what it looks like to lift before practice and after practice, I have to be selective in what we do, understanding they're then going to go on the field and accelerate, decelerate,
Yeah.
sprint. Where on the flip side, if you're lifting your group after practice, you just have to understand they may have just spent an hour and a half on the field and they're fatigued. So you have
Yeah.
to be selective in a different manner. We lifted before practice all spring, was great. We'll proceed with that this fall.
Mhm.
Our schedule is as follows. We will lift twice a week no matter what. The standard women's college soccer schedule is you play matches on Thursdays and Sundays. We actually have a lot of one match weeks, but starting with Thursday, Sunday, we will lift match day -2. So that's Tuesday. Um, that's our hardest training day of
Mhm.
the week as well, because it's the furthest we will ever be away from a match and the furthest post match. So, say we played on a
Yeah.
Sunday, Monday off, lift Tuesday, practice hard Tuesday, Wednesday's match day -1, the day before a game. So, we'll lift match day -2. Then we will lift match day +1. So, if we play on a Thursday, we will lift on a Friday. That Tuesday lift, the -2, is our main strength day. So everyone
Mhm.
pretty much looks really similar on this day. Yes, exercise selection varies based on training age, injury history, athlete preferences. I let the kids have a lot of
Mhm.
autonomy in season if they gain my trust during this time. Um, and then the Friday lift is where a lot of things vary. So we really will have three main buckets. It'll be our high minute players, so anyone that plays greater than 60 minutes, medium minute, maybe you played 20 minutes, maybe you played 40 minutes.
Mhm.
Maybe you played the last two matches 90 minutes, but then this game you only played 40, like something like that. And then a low minute, or what I just call our developmental kids, right? And I always explain to this group, you're going to train hard and you might be upset because you're not getting minutes and you're not seeing the field, but you just never know when your name's going to be called. And so my job is to have you prepared, whether your name is called tomorrow or a month from now or a year
Yeah.
from now. And everywhere I've been so far, I think just having those honest, real conversations, like for the most part, that group of kids has really embraced that role and that environment. And just, I think a lot of times those kids can be overlooked and forgotten about from a coaching staff or support staff role. But those kids are why we're able to hold practices
Yeah.
and have competitive sessions, right? Like they're probably some of the more healthy kids on the team that aren't battling through the fatigue of two matches a week. So that's the normal structure, -2 +1. And then if we have one game a week, if we play on a Friday, we may lift on like a Tuesday and Thursday. It
Yeah.
varies and it varies on travel, but we're going to find ways to get things in. So
Are these, and I'm assuming these lifts, especially in season, are pretty not quick, but like simple. Maybe we're getting a push and pull and squat hinge, whatever it is. Is that the case?
yes, yes, and right. I think people sometimes relate like simple to short. Our
Mhm.
coaches
True.
at this may be the most amount of time I've ever been allotted with a group. I'm gonna have an hour twice a
Okay.
week, so 2 hours twice a week.
Yeah.
I'll take that.
It's pretty good.
Because you have to account for like rest periods, and our kids will get under a barbell and they will squat and they will reverse lunge and they'll split squat. Now we will also use other things like dumbbells and whatnot. I think that's one issue I have with soccer culture is I understand what the pros do. I get it. Our athletes are not professionals; they're developmental,
Mhm.
and we're going to use different tools. But again, not all of our kids get under a barbell. And they get to have a say in that a lot of the times
Mhm.
during the season. But yeah, we have our big hitter things. So like, for example, I'll share our lift the other day. I cut some things out just time wise, even because we really got in on the field and we're working hard and we were training at 10 o'clock in Auburn humidity. Um, and I value the kids' time and my time.
Yeah.
But we had, right, we started with like 4 like preparatory exercises. So I've been adjusting some things and I've just decided, okay, there's one of me and there's 28 kids. We have a lot of new kids. Everyone's on the same training card now for the most part. There's some things I really want to have my eyes on them for as a group. And it's these smaller accessory movements that they just sometimes think are not
Yeah.
important. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, this is so important for your development and your health and your well-being. There's a reason it's in the program. Just because it's at the end and it's not under a barbell doesn't mean it's not important. So I've shifted and we basically do circuit style when they first get into the weight room and go through like 4 prep exercises. But the other day, my prep exercises were a GHD back extension, body weight, a calf raise, a Copenhagen plank, and on the cable stack, like a rotational pal off, right? So
Yeah.
we're hitting glutes and hamstrings, we're hitting the calf complex, we're hitting the adductor, and we're hitting our pillar.
Yeah.
2 weeks prior, all those things were at the end of our lift, and I just didn't like how people were doing
Oh.
it. And now it's like,
Yeah.
all right, it's on my whistle, it's on the clock, and you're gonna learn how to do these
Yeah.
things and hold yourself and your teammates accountable. Went so much better.
Yeah.
Um, so those 4 things happened. We did 2 sets, and then they went and did a barbell reverse front rack barbell reverse lunge and an RDL, and we were done. But
There
we
you
got
go.
our knee bend in, we got our head
Yep.
hinging, and we got glutes, hamstrings, adductors, calves, pillar. They also had bench press and row on that day, but time
I was
wise,
gonna
we
say,
just cut it
yeah,
out. And that's why
for
I
sure.
tend to put my upper body stuff at the end of the lift. So if we cut
Mhm.
something, it's that.
Okay, got you. So were you, not to get too into the weeds, but were you you wouldn't, are you superset in those two?
No,
Was it okay,
no,
got you.
they have literally just barbell reverse lunge by itself
And they rest. Yeah.
and they rest. There's
Yeah,
3 of
okay.
them in a rack. They
Yeah, yeah,
rest.
yeah.
And then they have RDL
Yeah.
like by itself. I used to superset those, right?
Hmm.
Sometimes they are supersets with
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
things. I used to be like, okay, they need something to do in between their reverse lunge. I'll give them a dead bug.
Yeah.
No, coach your teammate up.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
help switch the weights off the barbell.
Yeah.
And then I have a much more clear vision of the room and like what's actually going on
Mhm.
rather than worrying about Sally on the ground doing her dead bug.
Yeah, because then you're like trying to curse the dead bug, meanwhile somebody's trying
And
to
then I'm
squat,
like,
somebody,
you're
yeah.
doing this. This is BS. Just
Yep.
do it the right way. I need to be more worried about Susie doing her squat. Like, you know. So
No,
I don't
completely
know
get
why
it.
S names are the thing today, but
It
they
is
are.
the thing. It is the thing. One thing I want to definitely, before time gets away from us, I do want to touch on is what everybody seems to have an opinion on. And
That means I
I'm sure,
probably have an opinion too.
yeah, which is exactly what I want to hear. But it's especially it's become prevalent in women. But the ACLs, and I feel like we're hearing about it a lot. And then there's different, like different studies, I guess, being done now. I think even I think is
FIFA.
FIFA's one. Yeah. Anyway, I want to open this can all the way up
Yeah.
and hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah. And I think even shared something on my story about this the other day because someone asked me a question on ACLs and stud size and placement and surface. I'll be the first person to admit I don't have all the answers. If I had all
Yeah.
the answers, I'd probably be making a lot more money right now. I wish I had the answer. But what I do know is we are not going to find the root answer in conversations about stud size and placement, surface, whether it be turf and grass, and then this thing that the FIFA is funding, the menstrual
Yeah.
cycle.
Yeah.
Women have always had a menstrual cycle. I have spent a lot of time diving into the menstrual cycle recently. I think women should do that. We really should understand our bodies. And part of me is really happy and excited that, right, FIFA is funding something that is geared towards women, right?
Mhm.
Women's sports are growing, they're getting the recognition they deserve. We're trending in the right direction. I think it is progress. Like but I question if it's actually moving the needle forward, because basically FIFA is funding a year-long study, and the hypothesis is that the fluctuation in hormones during ovulation, during different phases of the menstrual cycle, and when you're menstruating, that huge fluctuation impacts ligament laxity, neuromuscular control, and ultimately influences injury, specifically ACLs.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to find that the hypothesis is correct. I think that that is an assumption that we've all had for years. So now, great. What's next?
Yeah.
So we just spent a lot of money to fund a study to get an answer that we already assumed. So where I have frustration is, okay, well, what are we doing next? I think, right, for me, the answer starts with positions like my own, and investing in performance training for not even just youth women, but youth athletes, youth soccer players, but female youth soccer players. I think that's where it starts and begins. I think it also begins with education on load management at the youth level, because these kids are right. And youth soccer was crazy when I was playing. I drove an hour and a half to practice one way.
Yeah.
My brother drove 2 hours to practice one way, 4 times a week. Like, it's always been crazy, but it's a different level of crazy now, where kids are in and out of these showcases and tournaments. I mean, our own athletes that commit to Auburn are talking to me when they are on doing this training program that they're not able to do half the time because they're playing club and high school at the same time. They could have 4 games in 1 week.
Yeah.
And they're repeating the same actions over and over and over again, and don't have a basis of like physical performance and development and strength to withstand. Like, we have to think about, one of the most taxing things in the lower body is decelerating. There's so much deceleration that happens in a soccer match. And these kids don't have like the general strength to withstand those demands and the volume of those demands. So that's the youth level. I think the college level, it's not much better.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful here at Auburn, I have our kids on campus for 4 weeks, voluntarily training, and then we'll go into preseason. Preseason starts on July 29th. We play our first match 4 days later. It's an exhibition match.
Yeah.
But if you're in college, all of it matters.
It all matters. Yeah.
It matters. Like, we're going to put our starting 11 out there and see what's up. And we're going to, thankfully, we aren't doing any like 2-a-days and craziness. We'll practice once a day, but some universities are not as fortunate to have had their whole squad on campus for a month like we do.
Yeah.
So I'm periodizing our training and gradually ramping us up so that it's not a shock to the system when we start on July 29th and then play a game 4 days later.
Yeah.
A lot of universities don't have that luxury, and all their athletes will arrive on July 29th and then be thrown into the fire. And then we question why kids are injured. And then they're playing 2 matches a week and had no ramp up period. Then they go home for Christmas break for 2 months. Then we repeat, and then they go home for summer. It's just this constant cycle.
Yeah.
And then at the pro level, again, I'm getting long-winded, but I think there's many stages of this, right? At the pro level, there's more resources in women's college soccer right now than a lot of professional women's teams in America, or if you go and play overseas, even in some of these smaller clubs. I went and interviewed for a job in the NWSL like a year and a half ago, and I got on site and I was like shocked. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize it was that bad, just from like a resource perspective, right? And it's not necessarily the club's fault or the players' fault or the people who work there. Like, right, the people, a part of it, they want the best. They do. We all do. But it's just the state currently of the league. So I always tell our kids, I was like, eat up the resources in the college space, because if you have aspirations to play professionally, like, this is where all the tools are. Fill your toolbox with all the tools so you can take care of yourself. But I think a few years ago, we saw this huge increase in ACLs in the NWSL and the women's national team in international women's soccer. And it was during a World Cup year, and players were coming in and out of their NWSL teams, going to play on international duty, coming back, not having a break. But
Yeah.
I think that we're progressing. While I don't necessarily agree with this FIFA study 100%, while it's exciting but not exciting, you
Yeah.
look at the women's national team's new head coach, Emma Hayes. Women's national team had camp in January, and all the girls on the squad who play for teams off in Europe were actually on international break during that week. So they could have come back for U.S. women's national team camp. Emma Hayes was like, no, you're not getting on a plane,
And yeah.
flying to, I think they were in California, and playing on your break. Take your break. And I think right there is a huge step forward, in my opinion,
Yep.
for our professional athletes.
I mean, you just even on the men's side is you just obviously had the Club World Cup and everything. It's like
Yep.
then there's Euros last summer, then it's World Cup, then it's like the amount of like playing 70 to 80 games is insane.
Yeah, people always talk, people ask me sometimes like, oh, dude, you want to go work in pro soccer? And like, I've had like little taste of it doing an internship. I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of love from, I'm
Yeah.
complaining about, for our kids, it's not the best model. College
Yeah.
soccer model is not the best model. I
Yeah.
don't agree with it. It's just not safety, health, and wellness. No. It's nice for me as the coach because I do get time down where
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
pro soccer, it's just 10 months long. Like, I mean, my brother
Yeah.
plays in the USL, and I'm like, we're in like week 19. Like, is this really week 19? Like, I
Yeah.
came to your first game 19 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And they're always playing in like the whatever cup and this. I'm like, is
Yeah.
this a normal league game? Like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
Yep. Yep. Do they have so a lot of male college players will sometimes play in like the is it the USL League One or whatever they call it over
The
the
summer
summer
league.
league? Yeah. Do
Yeah.
do they have that for women as well?
Yes.
Oh,
So that's another hot topic for
yeah.
me. I have my own
Sorry.
viewpoints. Uh yes, there are summer leagues. And so I think I'm just gonna talk about it now if we still have time.
No,
I
keep
think
going.
that it just goes back to like what we talked about with just how soccer is these days are really just youth sports. It's just like
Yep.
constantly the same patterns over and over again. So a lot of our kids do play summer league. I have reservations about it sometimes because I don't think it's for everyone. Right? If you're an athlete nursing an injury, is it the best idea to go play with your summer
Yep.
league team where you don't have the resources? And right, you can say your summer league coach cares about you, but like when it comes down to it, probably don't need to be playing 90 minutes three
Yep.
times a week and then heading into a grueling preseason. I think there's a balance. I really do. But I just have hesitations about the summer league sometimes because of that
Yeah.
and just numbers. Sometimes these kids go and play and their team has no subs. And so it's just
Yeah.
like,
Again, it's not as organized almost as you think it might be.
no. Some clubs do it
Some.
really great.
Yeah.
Other clubs they don't. And
Yep.
again, that's not necessarily their fault. They're working with the
Yep.
resources that they have.
Yep. Yep. No, definitely. I don't want to take up too much. I feel like there's a lot more rabbit holes we
No,
could
you're
go
good.
down.
You're good.
um, one thing I wanted to actually kind of switching gears, but just combining almost two questions together because I was going to ask you if you find yourself having unrelated conversations, unrelated to sport
Mm.
conversations with your athletes, and then is there like a training beyond university tied into there as well? Just staying healthy, active, all that sort of stuff. Because I had one of my athletes that just finished university come back, and I was just like, talking to her and realized that she doesn't exactly know what to do now or how to just kind of if you don't go pro or if you don't do this, you're kind of switching up life.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you have any
Yeah, I think
conversations
kind
that
of
you're
like
having?
to hit on your second question first of just
Yeah.
like life after college. I mean, that's a big part of my job. And there's some things in my training program sometimes that are strictly for that because I recognize that very small percentage of the athletes I coach are going to go on to play professionally. And if they do, they're probably not going to have very long careers
Hmm.
professionally. So, what does it look like for them to walk into your standard Anytime Fitness, Crunch Fitness, and feel confident and comfortable when for the past 4 years of their life, they've just been handed a training card and
Yeah.
lifted with their best friends, and everyone was doing the same thing. And so they didn't stick out like a sore thumb, you know. And so for me, like, I want to empower the female athletes in particular that I'm working with. And so I'm like, I love chin ups and push ups and just what calisthenics, I guess you could say, like
Yeah.
those types of things of like, if a girl can walk in as a freshman and not do a chin up and she walks out a senior and can do 5 chin ups, I'm like, I've won.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and a lot of the group, I think, finds value in that. Past groups I've worked with, especially like at Baylor, our girls loved bench press and chin up like more than anything. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is more like, I've always had this thought in the back of my head. I just haven't had the bandwidth for it. And I think a passion project of mine that I'm kind of working on is like a program exactly for those people. So,
Yeah.
right, like these girls at the end of the season when they graduate, I want to be like, here is 2 months of training for you to do.
Hmm.
Right? Maybe it's a dumbbell only workout. Like, you don't want to
Yeah.
touch a barbell ever again. And it's different things than we've been doing. And right. And then, okay, there's other people out there that could benefit from that as
Yeah.
well. And then in regards to like conversations that I'm having with my athletes, I mean, I spend so much time with these kids. Like, we talk about nonsense
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think like one big conversation just the last 2.5 weeks since these kids have been back on campus, right? It's like, oh, I'll be like, oh, how was your summer? Or they'll ask me first, how was your summer? And I'm like, okay, let's talk about the real shit. Like, let's talk
Yeah.
about the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, I'm human. Um, I don't want them to forget that I'm human and I'm living the same life that they're living, and I've been in their shoes, and one day they'll be in my shoes, and we're like really not too far removed. Some of them are like now 10 years younger than me. I'm like, how did we get here?
Yeah.
Um, but like the other day, one of them asked me, they're like, how was your summer? And I'm like, do you really want to know? They're
Yeah.
like, yeah. I was like, well, I didn't like, for me,
Deep
I
stuff.
went kind of went through and I've been open and authentic about this on my social media. I was going through a
Yeah.
really hard season of like just anxiety and depression. And so I've gotten really real with some of our girls lately
Hmm.
of like, yeah, like this is my first summer, like not in the state of Texas. And like, I'm not even from Texas, but like
Yeah.
I have family there. Like, these are the things I'm used to doing for the last 6 summers of my life.
Yeah.
Like, this summer was really different. And I've really struggled just, you know, move bopping around the country and like with loneliness. And like my friends are all over in different life seasons. And, you know,
Yeah.
like, I'm like, these are real things you're going to experience when you leave college, right? Like, all your friends, we all have been walking as a college student athlete, you walk in rhythm with all these people, right? From grade school till now, you guys are all moving through the same seasons, experiencing really similar things. And then college, you leave and everyone goes on their own paths, and people get in relationships and get married and have babies, and
Yeah.
divorce happens, you know, and death happens and all these different things, and it's real. And so I think, right, for me, I'm like, I'm a walking testimony of like Jesus's love and grace and like
Hmm.
humility. So I'm
Yeah.
going to share that with these kids, and we're going to get real. um and I hope they look at me and like get inspired and just see that like I'm literally no different than them, and I go through the same things they're going through. And I think that helps create an environment where they feel comfortable just being themselves and like bringing anything to the table.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No, and it's just
not to like
having,
have a therapy session,
no, I
but
love it. Just to like have the, because that's, I mean, to be honest, obviously it's not our job, but like we develop relationships with athletes where they do feel comfortable, you know, coming and just, you know, maybe talking about something that has nothing to do with actual strength and conditioning, and it's just about life. And I,
yep,
even myself, I find similar. I think we're, so I'm just went 28. So like just again, yeah, friends are all in different parts of their lives, and everybody, some people are moving away, some people are coming back. There's all these things are happening, and I always try to obviously show up as my best self during sessions for my athletes and that sort of stuff. But you know, after the session, if we're talking and whatnot, and they ask, you know, how was your day, and I'm like, I'm tired today. I've been up since 4:30. This is like my 12th session. I'm like, it's a lot. I love what I do, and I make sure that they always know that like they're not a burden on me. I I am there because I want to be there. But like sometimes just having those real conversations then opens up the door for them to be like, well, actually, I was feeling, not the greatest yesterday at practice or this or that. Um, so yeah, it's so important. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I think like an easy where I find myself most in I don't spend a lot of time in my office in season. Like there's not a lot of sitting at my desk. I probably
Mhm.
spend more time in the training room than I do at my desk. And like the training room is the kids' safe haven, right?
Yeah,
That's where they go for like nursing an injury and like love and comfort. That's their safe place, or that's what it should be for sure,
yeah,
for certain. And so a lot of those things can learn a lot about the kids in the training room as well. And so I find myself there a lot, especially at this point in the kids being here. There's a lot of new kids, and so I'm just
yep,
trying to over listen to conversations sometimes and like get a vibe and like read the room of like how things are going.
yeah, and it's also like we're talking about our lives as post collegiate, but also in college, like it's a wake up call, and you go through a lot of things that you haven't dealt with before, and just having people there to understand and talk to or whatever is huge. And yeah, whether it's the strength coach or yeah the athletic trainer, I feel like they also get, like you said, a lot of the what's going on, because especially
Yep.
if they're because then you have the athletes that are like maybe they're in an injury that they're out for a few weeks or a few
Yeah.
months or anything
And the
like that,
kids
and they're
think they're sneaky in their
yeah
conversations. I'm like, I'm standing right
right
here.
here. No, it's all good. But anyway, we're like right on the hour mark, which is perfect.
Perfect.
So if you want to just quickly let anyone know where they can maybe get in contact with you or follow you or anything like that, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm not really on much of anything else. It's Malorie_Henderlong. Um, I'll answer DMs even if you send it and like we're not friends. I check my like requests almost every day. Or my email, you can find it on the Auburn website. Like I will always get back to people. That's one of my like flaws plus one of my greatest traits because
Yeah,
sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have 8
overwhelmed.
phone calls to have.
Yep.
But I'll always get back to anyone because I had great people and mentors in my life that did that for me. So
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this, Mallory. I really appreciate it.
yeah, thanks for having me.